Welcome to the Deconstructing Data live stream and podcast. I'm Jessie Lezak, CMO at BDEX, along with BDEX's CEO and founder, David Finkelstein. What's new, David?
Hey, Jessie. Not a whole lot. Just been busy filling up my schedule for the Possible conference in Miami the week after next. So anybody out there listening wants to meet me, reach out. I'll be at the Possible conference taking meetings, and it's going to be pretty busy.
Awesome. At first, when you said the Possible conference, I thought you meant like possibly you'll be at a conference, but it's actually called the Possible conference.
I don't know. I honestly don't even know why it's called Possible, but it's gotten more and more popular every year. So
cool. Well,
pretty busy this year.
I'm going to suggest that I hope you'll take a lot of pictures and selfies and videos and send them over our way so we can, get those posted.
All right, I'll work on that.
Okay, but today on Deconstructing Data, we're thrilled to welcome on Piers Fawkes, founder of PSFK and Fodda. Hopefully I said that right. Welcome to the show, Piers.
Hi, great to be here. Hi, David. Hi, Jessie. How are you?
Yeah, we're great. Yeah, great. We're glad you could join us today, and we're looking forward to this conversation. We want to give you a chance to kick it off and introduce yourself to our viewers and listeners. So please give everybody a little bit of background about who you are and how you got to found two companies, PSFK and Fodda.
That's great. I'm Piers. I'm New York based. I'm originally from London, but I've been in New York for 25 years. And I have some folks may have heard of me because of this company called PSFK, which is a trends and innovation company that I started when I came to New York. It started as a humble newsletter and a blog. I was writing about trends and new ideas that I was seeing. And it turned into this kind of wonderful journey for about 20 years where I shared with audiences newsletters, stories about the future and what's going on. And I helped kind of a lot of the leading companies in the US, corporations, understand kind of the trends and the opportunity areas. It was a fantastic ride. But that ride sort of came to an end December 22 when OpenAI released ChatGPT. And suddenly you could ask a chatbot what the future is and what the trends are. And it gave a very convincing answer. And it still does. And but at that time, I was always unsure about I always felt there was more. And there's more nuance that you could deliver. And Fodda is a sort of 3 years later is a product that really kind of helps enhance your LLM and enhance your AI system to become a domain expert. I can tell you more about that in a second.
Very cool. Yeah, a lot changed, right? Once ChatGPT got launched, and a lot of has changed for sure. A lot of industries have changed since then.
Yeah, I'm even sure your industry, David, just changed. But there's a lot of the needs have just remained the same. There's still some truths out there, and so how do we respond? I think for my industry, we were like trend hunters. We're out there trying to find out what the trends are, and we were limited. I rose because I was able to use the internet to find content and find new ideas and share with people. And especially social media came along, which helps exaggerate that. And then, but we were always constrained by who we knew, what we could read, English language. And even though I kind of say that ChatGPT kind of changed my business, changed my job, it also enhanced the work we do and the work I do. So I can now research in every language. I can research in every region. I can do so much more scale. Since December 22, I've been really investigating the use of AI and knowledge and how to use it. So I'm kind of glad that I had a moment where I was kind of forced to reflect just on how my work is, how I do my work and what tools I can use.
Yeah, absolutely. I have this saying I always say, which is good, bad, who knows, right? And so, maybe your audience kind of went away And at the moment, you might have thought, oh, this is bad, but it created new opportunities for you. So in the end, it's good. So that's how I look at things. But let's jump into this topic. I want to dig a little more
Yeah.
into this artificial intelligence trends in startups.
Sure. Let's talk about artificial intelligence trends in startups. Over the last 2-3 years, I have been exploring different startup ideas. Actually, people talk about, will AI take away your job? And in some ways, it took away my job 3 years ago. So what I did is leaned in and tried to understand this dragon and try to understand this system and what I could do with it and how I could change. And over that time, I came up with ideas such as Trend Gods, which had basically a directory of PDFs, and it would you can chat the PDFs. Or I had Event Mind, which would scan the talks of speakers at South by Southwest and help you find nuggets and other topics that are really interesting. And then I extended that into earnings calls. And I was just trying to explore earnings calls and trying to find signals for marketers and retailers from earnings calls, rather than investor cues and stuff like that. So it's super interesting. I did all these things, and it was just getting the LLM to find data, crunch data. As I kept doing this, I kept realizing that I was kept worried about being overtaken by the hyperscalers. And that happens, so we have I was building wrappers, LLM wrappers, as they say. And I was building these systems, which eventually the LLM, OpenAI, Anthropic would put out a release, and it did the work I did. So I had to always think about how could I change, how can I evolve, and how can I add something maybe onto the off-ramp or the on-ramp to the LLM system, rather than try to create my own highway in a way. Yeah. And that's so in terms of startups, that's kind of what I see happening is we need to understand we have these juggernauts, we have these massive trucks going in one direction. And then how do we float around that and to enhance people, customers, executives day to day with services, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing that trend where people have been creating a variety of different types of, call them applications, that are exactly that. They're just wrappers using an LLM to do a task. And now we're seeing that those getting sort of evolved and pushed out already by the LLMs, where they're like, oh, we could just build that right into it. And so now you can just ask ask Claude or ask ChatGPT to do that thing for you, and it just does it for you. So you're right. The trend is becoming that you need to be adding value to what the LLM is capable of doing, and not just an extension of what the LLM can do.
Yeah. And David, I think the other thing that I learned over that time is to go to where the user is. I built a lot of dashboards. I built a lot of websites and expected people to come. But ultimately, what was happening is a lot of activity happening within the LLM, within the chatbot experience, okay? And I think one of the other big trends that we're seeing is it might not be a complete move away from dashboards, from a AI startup's dashboard or system, but they need to think about how they show up within an LLM through connectors, through API, through MCP. I think that's the other kind of big shift that we're seeing right now is where does the product manifest? Where does the user actually experience the product, whether it's a B2C or whether it's a B2B product?
Yeah, 100%. In fact, we're seeing that in our business right now, where we're looking at building MCP. So we're in the process of right now for our own platform, so that anybody can use the LLMs to just communicate with our platform. But But even further to what you're saying, like looking into like Claude right now, you can easily just, there's all these different connectors. And so now you can just, build a connector to connect to your platform so that, everyone's basically going to choose the LLM that they like to use. And then everything else that they want to do is just going to be connected to that,
Yeah. And I think I'm going to add to that actually, which is around, picking the LLM that you choose, that you want. And I think, like yourself and like a lot of people on this call video is, I do lots of demo calls with this new product. And I listen to what the AI setup is at each of the different companies as kind of a bit of a starting point. And it's all over the place. And I think everybody will nod along. Like there are companies that have built AI systems. They have companies who have enterprise licenses, particularly Copilot is the default, And then we have kind of companies who just haven't worked it out. And maybe that's okay. I kind of say it's not time to stress. But what I do see is there's a bring your own AI to work situation. So when you have a platform that's being built, I mean, you can't build it as good as Silicon Valley. And so people are bringing their own laptop or their own tools to work. And then when they have a license to Copilot, they also want to use Anthropic, and then they want to use Gemini, and they want to use the consumer-focused facing tools as well. So I think that's also kind of something to think about in terms of what you build and where you build as well.
Yep, 100%.
Definitely. So, I mean, I think you kind of got to everything that was covered in the chat. But I guess, do you think that we're going to see a wave of AI startups that don't survive because of all the hype?
Yeah, but I think that's okay. I mean, it's all part of like we've all like, it's the one's going to get 1 in 20 is going to survive, and I think we all know what the odds are, I guess.
Yeah.
I think I think what I have had some great time doing some consulting with AI startups and with younger executives, and it's amazing the passion, the speed. There are so many amazing tools that teams use today. Whether it's project cards, whether I worked at a company that didn't use email. I've got a consultant for a company that didn't use email, hardly used Slack. They were just kind of using project cards and leaving project cards, and I just found it very fascinating that there's kind of new ways of working and things like that. So there's a nimbleness happening. You see companies continuing to chase product market fit. Sometimes I think maybe you're doing a little too fast and spinning around in circles, but so companies will come and go, and then obviously the LLMs will take a lot of those big ideas as well. So if you are a rapper, then it's likely that and you're good, you're going to be spied on, and you're going to be either acqui-hired or they're going to come and take your product.
Yeah.
That's
Interesting.
a risk for sure.
Yeah. It's really, therefore the data spaces where I think there's opportunities, obviously data, like your business, David, or like my new business is how do you provide data so that people can make better decisions and still use these tools that they're going to use as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that we've always looked at as our moat is the data, because we can interface our platform and all of the data that we have with pretty much anything. So, connecting it is kind of our specialty. And so I think that's what protects us as opposed to all of these sort of other tools that are just looking at, using the LLMs to, produce something. You're putting yourself in a position where the LLMs can produce it themselves. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, let's move on to the next topic. And that is knowledge graphs in data and AI systems. Could you kick us off on this, Piers?
Well, it's interesting because I'm like, it's interesting talking to you folks who are graph people, and myself, and I kind of feel like I'm like the teenager who thinks they've invented sex, when I haven't realized that it's been sex has been here forever, you know. And the same way with graphs. Graphs has been around for so long, but I'm here going, oh, look at this sexy new thing, or just really it's the new application of graphs to the AI experience. Okay, I am on a journey when it comes to I'm on a journey when it comes to learning about knowledge graphs. You know, there's this holy grail that you can see so many patterns within these databases, in the structure of these databases. But for me, how I understand, how I think about knowledge graphs they are databases structured in a way that helps AI get to answers faster, see patterns between data points faster, and much faster than what we were using 6 months ago, a year ago, and still using today, which were vector bases. So in some ways, we're actually building hybrids of that. But it's a kind of rapid evolution of RAG and kind of the use of data as well. And so I'm excited to kind of see where I can take this idea of the knowledge graph and knowledge of data all being put together and the patterns you can see within it.
Yeah, that's one of the exciting things about it is now the more data that you have, and whatever sort of graph you have, now connecting it to these AI tools, you can do so much more with it. It's so much more powerful because now you can do instant analysis and really dig into the data a lot deeper in ways that was a lot more difficult before, right? Employing data scientists and teams of people to get work done that now you can do at the click of a button.
Yeah, I feel like I'm going to do the next webinar where I interview you, David, about this. You know, this is such an interesting topic, such an important topic. Particularly, you know, what's happening is, I think we all know this, but you know, LLM output is in some ways fantastic. LLMs are fantastic, and generative AI is fantastic, but they give us output which is very much towards the mean, towards the medium, towards average. Yeah. And we can't place $1 billion bet on data that's really kind of been sourced from as training data or often web data and stuff like that. You know, I think there's a couple of things I think about which are around. We were lucky when we all started using generative AI. We had these machines that had read everything in some ways, yeah, and they became these wonderful encyclopedias that we could find out about everything. What we're seeing is, what I think was going to see is, LLMs don't need to know everything. Yeah, they need that information to function. They need that information to kind of get to the stage they're at. But it might not be that we will have an LLM that knows everything or has read everything, but in fact we'll have these machines which actually might get dumber and lighter, but have access to external data sources, including knowledge graphs. And I think that's important for a couple of reasons. One is obviously to get proprietary data and so therefore exclusive outputs. And then there's even things like sustainability and energy use as well. Like, do I need a machine that knows everything when I'm just trying to understand, get a recipe for the kids tonight and things like that? So I'm excited to kind of see what happens with the evolution of LLMs and the data sources that go in to those sources. And that's a place that I'm exploring as well.
Yeah. The trend is small language models instead of large language models, where you do exactly that, where you can train it on very specific information. You don't need to train it on everything. You know, like you look at something like ChatGPT and these others, they're trained on so much. But if you could build one, to your point, that's just trained on recipes, then you could have the best knowledge graph of recipe information that works in an instant. I feel like the same thing could be done with coding. A lot of people use Claude Code, but like Claude knows so much about so many things, it could probably be a lot more efficient if it only needed to know about coding a specific language or a series of languages. it would work a lot faster and more efficiently, and so on and so on. So you can apply that to pretty much anything.
Definitely. And I would say from a privacy aspect, wouldn't you think another evolution might be of like what data can be pulled out of it? So like isolating
privacy, IP.
Yeah.
I spoke to somebody who creates content, video content, entertainment content, wondering where where the original idea comes from. If people start to use LLMs, there's some big issues.
Yeah. So interesting to me. Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. Well, anything more on knowledge graphs and data and AI systems from either of you? I mean, David, anything you would add on knowledge graphs that we haven't said already?
Yeah, I mean, if we have another 2 or 3 hours, yeah.
Well, we don't. So then I guess we'll just move on to the next one. Using data for trends research.
Yeah.
Can you set the stage on that topic?
Well, that kind of steps into the next point. So what happened? So I spent a couple of years in the desert trying to work out what the future is for my business, my career, and things like that. And I realized that companies, corporations, advertising agencies, startups still need proprietary and exclusive data to output, okay? In the old days, 10 years ago, I would create PowerPoint decks, or I would take people on trend tours around cities and things like that. How people want to consume inspirational data, insights is different. And in fact, they want to consume those insights through their chatbots, through their LLMs. It's kind of one of the prime spaces, okay? And through great podcasts as well, and things like that, webinars. But so what I've done is I have kind of developed a way to access different experts, different domain expertise, different individual thought leaders, institutional data, industry research, and you can query that from your LLM through an MCP URL, they call it, but through a key you add as a connector. David was just talking about it earlier. Put that key in, and suddenly your LLM becomes the retail expert, or it becomes the beauty expert. And so that's sort of where I'm exploring. So that helps the end user. So you're a marketing executive and you're using the LLM to come up with your marketing plan. And so at some point you can just turn and you can say, hey, could you give me some research from the Fodda research base, knowledge graphs, and it will give you a whole bunch of data. And then you can then use some of that in your marketing plan or something like that. So I've been exploring how to kind of get the data in the right hands at the right time in the kind of right format as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's I can see that being super valuable. I mean, that's having those sort of trends at your fingertips. I think that's that's going to serve in a number of different ways across many industries to be super valuable.
Yeah, it's for me, it's a little hard right now where we get calls for all sorts of industries, but we're really focusing about retail, beauty, and sports because it's just about having amazing research. Everybody could scrape the web and create knowledge graphs around any topic, but I use the 20 years of experience to help kind of filter as a lens to create these knowledge graphs. And even though they're updated every day, it's important. Quality is important. Otherwise, you might as well just use a chatbot. So I'm kind of working at this. But I think the other thing that I'm also trying to do here is actually create a marketplace. So knowing that I can't do every topic, I can't be every expert, I can't do every research report. We are inviting other folks in. So I'm inviting what I would have considered as competitors in the past to bring their research in their vertical. Thought leaders like journalists, substackers, to kind of bring their research and turn their databases into graphs, turning people who publish reports, turning those reports into knowledge graphs as well. And then supplementing that with institutional knowledge. So when you use Fodda, you query all those different knowledge bases. We also do API calls across like 30 to 40 different sort of places, from the census to the World Trade Organization and things like that. It gets pretty detailed, but it ends up in a very simplified output in someone's kind of chatbot experience.
Amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, in terms of using data for trends research, any actionable advice you might share with any businesses listening?
Well, I think there's some very simple tips that I do. Okay, I do a lot of bookmarking. I use tools like Feedly as a bookmark tool. So you or your team could kind of have a group account where every time you're seeing cool stuff, adding that content into Feedly. And what's great about Feedly is it can set up some kind of algorithmic searches. It can do Google. You can set up some Google searches. You can set up some Reddit searches and other things. Okay, around keywords, and it can pour into this kind of one central database. Okay. Now, as a team, you could scan it every week, and you can just try to find out, see what's going on around a topic. And then, if you know about low-code and no-code tools, you could hook up Zapier to kind of do some analysis and basically run through ChatGPT. Say, okay, take the data, put it through ChatGPT, give me an email. And then those of you who are doing the coding, agentic coding, can do it. Take that to another level as well. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing what you can do. It's obviously, I think this, like, how do you capture data? How do you bookmark data? Is the first thing,
Yeah, and how you utilize no-code tools, it sounds like, as well.
Yeah. Well, I now do agentic coding 100%, but I only learned really about the process through no-code and low-code. So if you're like somebody who's like, I need to understand coding or this agentic coding, I sometimes wonder whether you'd go off and you just start using the low-code and no-code tools, first of all, like Zapier, to just understand the steps that you would go through to do something. How would you capture data? How would you share that data? And then you can then code that.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, some car there is not happy in the background. I kind of like the live city sounds.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Good. No,
welcome to New York.
Yeah. We're all in different areas, but just moving on to our final topic. This is something we've asked all the guests who come on Deconstructing Data, which is basically just, what are some of your favorite tools in your tech stack that are empowering you and your team?
Super. Well, I went through a bit of an evolution where I showed an agentic coder what I did, what tools I did, and we wrote it. The machine basically replaced a whole bunch of the tools that I used to use. So any of the kind of Zapier stuff and low-code stuff, I basically got a coder to replace that and redo that. And there's a reason to do that. Obviously, I wanted to personalize, and there was so much money I was spending on those services. I was spending thousands and thousands of dollars every month on all these different services. And so a lot of my system is proprietary. I use Neo4j is my sort of graph stack, is the place where the graph is. But the website is agentic coded, so it just sits in the Google Cloud project. The actual API I built myself. I didn't know what an API was. Well, I didn't really know what an API was. I built myself. The MCP I built myself. So everything is the stack is code. I think. What else can I tell you? Is there anything else I can tell you in terms of the stack?
Well, just like what tools do you find really useful to help you with your day-to-day? I
use Feedly. As I said, I use Feedly as a kind of as a tracker. And then, obviously I have this is not a technology stack, but I have newsletters that I subscribe to but now I have built code that scrapes those newsletters to add to my database and stuff like that. So maybe the other thing that I use is Airtable. So right now I do a lot of Airtable.
Airtable, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe one day I'll graduate from Airtable, but it's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
You don't have to look at it. It's pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Any other tools?
That's it. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you a question. What do you use for agentic coding?
So the coding, I guess. So the coding, I use a coding software called Anti-Gravity from Google.
Okay.
Which runs on it's like an extension. If some folks might have used AI Studio, I guess it's their software.
Okay.
For coding, and then within Anti-Gravity, you can select the different programs. I drift towards the Claude, Opus, and stuff like that. It just does an amazing job at what I want to do.
Yep.
So that's sort of like I don't mind all the different types of LLMs. I'm sure they're all slightly different and things like that. I actually do a lot of co-piloting. So I have a classic LLM chatbot who's talking to me about what the coder's doing, and then I'm sharing. I do a lot of kind of sharing back and forth, asking the coder to write a note, give it to the LLM to write a note, pass it back to the coder. I don't know if there's sufficient use of the time, but in my head, like, it's a sort of kind of way to kind of run and operate these systems and kind of create the most out of these systems.
Yeah, Claude just keeps coming out with like more and more tools. Like the latest one is routines, which I've been trying to figure out how to implement that on a couple of things.
Yeah, I've been using the kind of routines with ChatGPT for quite a while now. But as you were saying, the connectors and MCP is just like, it's changed my world. So when I started working Fodda and started talking to companies, I thought I was going to sell into like chief data officer or an IT team. Eventually I'd have to like sell the product in there. They would have to install my product. But because connectors allows any user, it could be a corporate user, it can be a consultant, it could be the head of IT, and they can just put that single key, MCP URL, they call it, into Anthropic, into Claude within like 1 click, 2 clicks, and you just get started. And I just think that it's going to democratize access to a whole bunch of services within the LLM experience. And then Anthropic ahead of this, you can do it with Perplexity very well. Notion, you can kind of do it within Notion. It's a couple of more steps within Notion. And then, I guess ChatGPT will eventually turn up. And I think Gemini, you can do it takes a few more steps as well.
Very interesting. Yeah, there's always new things to talk about in terms of the tools in the tech stack here, especially with Claude. But anyway, in closing, Piers, we'd love to learn more about you. Could you let the listeners know how they could find you?
Yeah, super. Well, I'd love for you folks to if anybody wants to trial, just come along. We have this free trial. You can just plug that key in and just get to work. It's the company's called Fodda, FODDA.ai, Fodda.ai. Come along or check out PSFK.com, the original business, the trends research business. And I'd love it if anybody comes along, plays, gives me feedback. We're a growing company. We're trying to change. We're really trying to become this kind of single key to your future of your research. So come along and make your LLMs a domain expert.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah. Awesome, Piers. This has been a great conversation. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a great conversation. Appreciate your time, and I'll let Jessie close us out then.
Yeah, definitely. This has been a really great conversation. Thank you, David. Thank you, Piers. And I'll close us out with this video. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next.
So audience members, we want to invite you to get powered by BDEX. Build authentic connections with your audience and drive unprecedented engagement. So just imagine harnessing the power of AI to craft your audiences that truly resonate with your brand, ensuring that your marketing is hitting the mark every time. We want to bring you closer to those marketing goals, and we're eager to guide you. So just visit bdex.com. You can click on the Talk to an Expert button and get powered by BDEX.
Deconstructing Data is the show that makes data make sense. Every Thursday, David Finkelstein and myself, Jessie Lezak, sit down with industry experts to unpack how data really drives marketing. We do this in plain language anyone can understand. If you want real insights, real conversations, and zero jargon, tune into Deconstructing Data live on LinkedIn every Thursday at 4:15 p.m. Eastern Time. Go, go, go.